Let's have a look at this. This is Bernie Ecclestone, the former head of Formula One, appearing on Good Morning Britain this morning and being asked about Vladimir Putin.
Do you still regard him as a friend? Do you still stand by that feeling towards him?
Yeah, I'd still take a bullet for him. I'd rather it didn't hurt, but if it does, I'd still take a bullet. Because he's a first-class person, and what he's doing is something that he believed was the right thing he was doing for Russia.
Bernie Ecclestone, I would take a bullet for him. He regards him as a good friend, a first-class person who has made a few mistakes. Even when he was pressed by Susanna Reid, sorry, that wasn't Susanna Reid, was it? And so as he was pressed by GMB, he said, basically, he's made a few mistakes regarding, you know, the war in Ukraine, the killing of innocent people. And in fact, Zelensky's a comedian, and he should probably have stayed as a comedian. It was a very bizarre interview. John, a very good morning to you. It's a strange thing to ask you about, first off, but it's a very odd position to take on the global situation, isn't it?
Good morning, Mike. Yeah, absolutely. I think you got it in one there. I think Bernie Ecclestone's lost it.
Yeah.
I think he's been in his bubble too long. I mean, that's almost along the lines of Hitler made a few mistakes, isn't it?
Yeah, he's a very nice man, very kind to his mother.
Yeah, no, vegetarian and good and good with animals.
Yeah.
No, I think he has slightly detached himself from reality. I don't think there's much more to add than that.
Well, there isn't really, other than when somebody like Bernie Ecclestone, who's quite a high-profile figure, comes out with stuff like this, what it will do is it will feed that sort of narrative which bubbles under the surface on, you know, certain YouTube sites and various other places that, you know, this is all some kind of conspiracy by the West, you know, Zelensky's some kind of puppet and Putin is actually the man who is standing up for freedom and individuality against the wokists. I mean, that's my fear about it.
Well, it's an absolutely bizarre example of horseshoe politics, isn't it? About where the extreme right and the extreme left meet.
Yes.
Is in Putin apologism.
Yes.
Because, you know, you've got the old tankies who think that it was a shame to have dissolved the Soviet Union, meeting the sort of nationalist, anti-woke Trumpists.
Yes.
Who think Vladimir Putin's one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, it is an extraordinary state of affairs. I mean, can I ask you an honest question? I mean, when this all started many months ago, I mean, it was hard to imagine that we would be here, because when it did start, the idea was that Russia are going to make a sort of quick surgical strike. They're going to maybe annex a part of Ukraine. They're going to focus and concentrate on trying to get more of the eastern side of the country. And it'll probably all be over quite quickly. It's turned out to be the complete opposite of that.
Yeah, no, when it started, it was widely expected that Russia would just roll over the whole of Ukraine. I thought Vladimir Putin was intending to occupy the entire country, because I was writing editorials for The Independent saying this is very sad. There wasn't much we could do about it, but in the end, it was untenable for him, and Vladimir Putin wouldn't be able to maintain a grip on a country the size of Ukraine, given that the Ukrainians don't want to be subjugated by the Russians. But the idea that the Ukrainians would fight back and actually see off the Russian assault was just not on the cards.
Yes.
That was the real surprise. But of course, you know, once the initial attack was held off, it meant nobody knows what happens next, and we're in a deadlock situation now.
Well, that's right. More troops and more sort of weaponry and more training now going in. Conversations being had, certainly in the corridors of Whitehall here, that we need to spend more money on defence. That seems to be growing kind of in momentum, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's an announcement today of another £1 billion of British money, which is interesting because, I mean, that's what Boris Johnson is staking his political future on, actually, is the fact that the British public opinion will stand by Ukraine, whereas we've already started to hear the slightest murmurings of people saying, well, why should we be spending all this money fighting Zelensky's war when we've got a cost of living crisis at home?
Yes. To which the answer obviously is, well, if you let Zelensky and Ukraine fall into the hands of Russia, as Zelensky and his people would have said at the start of all this, where's he going to go next?
Well, absolutely, but other countries don't seem to feel that urgency. I mean, the UK is second only to the US in the amount of money that we're pouring into the Ukrainian war effort, and I think there are going to be questions asked at home about that.
Well, I suppose so. I mean, significantly, I heard this morning on one report that this is the most money that the UK Armed Forces and the UK defence budget has put into anywhere since Afghanistan and Iraq. And you'd have to then say, well, back in those days, it was us in America then as well. You wouldn't expect much from France and Germany and the rest of Europe.
Absolutely, and of course the difference this time is that we're not putting our troops on the line. This is just supplying the best military kit, but I mean it's going to cost us money.
Yeah. And I mean, as you say, there will be people who say, well, hang on a minute, I mean, there's already people asking questions about the Ukrainian refugee situation, because clearly, if this is going to go on for as long as we now think it will go on for, how many of the Ukrainian refugees who've come here will stay and will never return?
Well, absolutely. I mean, initially that was a situation that we thought was going to last for a few weeks or possibly months. Yeah. But now it stretches out for the foreseeable future, because Russia seems to be making sort of very slow advances in eastern Ukraine, and there's no end in sight.
No. And lots of destruction on the way, so that an awful lot of people's homes and schools and factories and whatever else are destroyed and have been destroyed, and will take a very long time to fix.
Yeah, more money that someone's going to have to pay for to fix it as well. And it's I mean, Ukraine is a poor country, and Europe and the UK have an interest in fixing it. So no doubt that will come to possibly the coffers of Germany, which might have the most interest.
Well, once they finish spending all that money on the Russian gas, they might have some left over.
Exactly. That's the paradox of the whole thing. It's an absolutely absurd situation where Germany is giving Russia billions and billions of euros to keep the war effort going in Ukraine, while the rest of the European Union and the UK are backing the Ukraine.
Yeah, but they've also joined in on the sanctions, while at the same time still giving them bucket loads of money. It doesn't really make much sense to me, but then, what do I know? But also, you describe Ukraine as a poor country, and you're right in the sense that the population is probably quite poor. But, I mean, as far as, depending on who you listen to, Ukraine is at the centre of almost every business that anybody's ever run. They're all over the car business in terms of supplying bits and pieces that make cars run. The wheat business is massive there. The food business in other areas. They seem to have an awful lot of manufacturing going on, which we didn't even know about.
No, but I mean, it is a poor country. I mean, one of the starkest graphs that you can see is what happened to Poland and Ukraine over the decades. They started off in the same place. Poland joined the EU, and the Ukraine was left to its own devices. Ukraine declined relatively, whereas Poland has become considerably more prosperous. And obviously the Ukrainians would quite like some of that.